Hi, I'm Dylan Tuckwell. This is my lesson plan for supporting autistic learners. So the presentation outline, I'll be going over the context of the lesson and the learner's profile, what evidence-based practice I've chosen, and then I'll be running through my autism planning system, the CAPS, and then an individual reflection at the end. So the classroom and lesson context is a grade 4 class. The subject area is English. The lesson focus is on narrative writing, specifically the story structure of a narrative. The lesson will run for around 60 minutes. The class profile is, there's 24 students in the class. There's a mixture of learning needs. The one autistic student who we're focusing on today is Liam. There's one SSO in the class and there's a bit of a flexible seating setup. So the learner profile for Liam, some of these communication considerations. Liam enjoys and is confident in conversations on his own preferred topics, which are maps and diagrams. He struggles to have conversations with others about topics he lacks interest in, so most other topics. Liam shows inconsistent eye contact and will consistently look away when he needs to process instructions. He uses minimal facial expressions and prefers to use written or visual resources to communicate what he's needing. Liam's got one good friend in the class, finds it hard to participate in unstructured group work where the roles aren't defined. Yes, then obviously he prefers it when there are clear roles if he's doing a group task. His learning characteristics, he gets visibly anxious when there is a change without prior warning, whether it's throughout the day or just within a lesson and a lesson sequence. He has a strong interest in mapping and showing information in diagrams. These interests are often used to help engage Liam in class tasks. He's also sensitive to louder noises and cluttered spaces, so he uses noise-cancelling headphones often and has a focus on keeping his desk clear. His strengths are he has a strong visuospatial memory, which helps to recall visual information easily. He's quite strong at that, and has a strong sequential processing ability. So he likes completing tasks in step-by-step order. He likes when tasks involve his interests of maps and diagrams. He has high reading comprehension skills, and when he's interested in tasks, he has the ability to stay focused for long periods. His support needs, he needs to have strong structure to help reduce his anxiety. He needs prior warning before schedule changes and any transitions within the lesson. And he needs visual schedules for activities in the day. He needs short, specific instructions to help reduce his verbal processing, and needs help to notice emotions in text, as well as adding emotion to his own text, as well as support identifying emotions of others during group work. Liam's learning goal. His learning goal is to be able to independently recognise and sequence the 3 different stages of a narrative. Those stages being the beginning, as we're going to be calling it, which is the introduction, the middle, the problem in the story, and the ending, which is where the story is. There's a resolution. He'll be doing this through the use of a visual organiser, as well as some other visual supports, and he'll be aiming to write at least 3 sentences across the narrative sections, whether that's just one in each section or more. The rationale for this goal is Liam's priority right now because narrative writing is a part of the Year 4 Australian curriculum, including text structure and features of different texts. Liam struggled with tasks such as these because it's a bit of narrative writing is generally pretty open-ended, and you can choose where it's going. He struggles with those sort of tasks. And the goals are building on his strengths of visualising information and his interest in maps, where we're going to try and make the story about mapping. The evidence-based practice I've chosen is visual supports. So, quick rundown of what visual supports are. They're the tools that are visible in nature, so it can include images, symbols, written text, schedules, or diagrams. It's to help communicate information to the student, or task steps, or learning behaviour expectations. They are useful because they reduce cognitive load. Visual supports help reduce cognitive load as the learner doesn't need to hold the instructions in their working memory at the same time as they're executing the task. It's promoting independence, so it should help Liam to be able to self-reference back to the task outline or the sequence without needing repeated reminders by the teacher or an SSO, which will hopefully gradually improve his independence and reduce dependency on staff members. It also is supporting his visual processing, so autistic students often show stronger visual processing skills than auditory processing skills, and Liam is, again, one of those students. And it helps to lower anxiety. Visual supports are predictable and help to lower anxiety by removing the uncertainty, especially in an open-ended task like this. They also support students to self-regulate through checking back to their visual support. So the implementation of the visual support, it will look roughly like, first of all, you need to figure out which part of the information is creating the cognitive overload for the student, and can then be transferred onto a visual support. For Liam, it's the idea of the narrative structure and needing reminders about that. Then you need to decide which visual support tools will be best to help the student. So in this lesson today, we're doing an agenda card, an anchor chart, a graphic organizer, and a checking card at the end. Then discuss with the student how to use the visual support effectively during the lesson, train them to use it, and ideally this is done through the teacher modelling how to use the tools. After that, you're trying to keep the same visual support tool for all the lessons, whether it's other lessons outside of this one or just continued lessons of this one down the track, until the students mastered the skill that we're aiming to do, narrative writing. And then finally, you're going to try and gradually fade out the visual support as the student will show the skills that we're trying to get them to do, and be able to just do it independently without the need of the visual supports. So visual supports suit Liam because, as mentioned, he has strong visuospatial reasoning, and visual supports use this visuals, and means he doesn't need to use many auditory processing skills during the lesson. He gets anxiety during open-ended tasks, so visual supports will help him have that visible structure there, and be able to check back on. He needs structure, as stated. Visual supports will help to provide task structure at every stage of the lesson. I said there's going to be 4, so it's at every part of the lesson. And he prefers the visual communication, so visual support obviously allows him to do that, and lessens the need for the teacher's instruction and his verbal processing load. He has a history of responding positively to visual schedules, like mentioned before. He uses them as daily schedules in the past. So the first visual support resource is the lesson agenda card. So this will be used during the lesson introduction. It will help Liam to ease his anxiety about how the lesson is going to look. It will have him ticking off where the class is up to through the lesson structure, also allowing him to feel a positive sense of completion after he ticks off each part of the lesson. You'll be able to see the resource there, where it's the first step, listening to the teacher and watching the story on the board, following along to these instructions. The next step, then creating his story plan and using the graphic designer. And then lastly, checking in with the teacher and using his feeling cards. The next visual support is an anchor chart. So this will help reduce Liam's need to focus on the whiteboard and process auditory instructions, and allow him to easily progress to the graphic organizer without the cognitive overload. So this will have him following along. There will be a larger version of this up on the whiteboard for all students to be looking at, but he'll just be able to track along at his own desk along the steps. And then again, as it progresses to the next stage of the lesson, he'll be able to check through here and revisit them without having to remember it. The next part is his graphic organizer through the guided practice part of the lesson. It will help Liam as it reduces anxiety about open-ended tasks and takes away some cognitive load of having to think about the structure of his narrative. The visible structure's there from the writer's story and along with the narrative sequence, and again, ideally he's using that anchor chart alongside this, where it's got the beginning, middle, and end, and that anchor chart's telling him what he needs to do in each part of this organiser. And then lastly, the check-in card, where it should allow Liam to finish the lesson with non-verbal check-in of his feelings and alleviates that pressure of a verbal response to the teacher, so he can check off whether he's feeling confident, feeling unsure, or if he needs more help. Now for the caps. You have the lesson activities, so the lesson introduction, the whole class lesson instruction, the guided practice, and the lesson finish/reflection. So some of the targeted skills to teach during that lesson introduction is recognising the visual agenda and its purpose for the lesson, and recognising the upcoming lesson activities that are on the visual agenda. For all of the modifications we've made, he's got that visual agenda for him. He's seated in a quiet area of the classroom with low traffic and his clear desk, and the SSO is there to go through the steps with Liam. For the whole class lesson instruction, he's understanding the narrative structure and purpose of each section. He's brainstorming sentence starters for each section of narrative. Then his modifications made for that. Again, the anchor chart's provided for him. It's gone through as a class, and then the teacher's modelling the writing steps with the sentence starters. Targeted skills to teach during the guided practice. He completes the sections of the graphic organiser, he monitors his progress using the tick boxes on the graphic organiser, and he's writing at least one sentence for each of those sections. The graphic organiser is provided for Liam for that modification again. The sentence starters are pre-filled to prompt him, and the story ideas about mapping, preferably, are going to be done with Liam with SSO. Then the lesson reflection, his skills he's trying to get there is just using the check-in card to reflect on his own progress, and the structure modification, he's got the card for him, and the teacher's there ready to check in if needed and give praise. Reinforcing this, for the lesson introduction, he's making sure he has the agenda plan and recognises its purpose. He's getting praised, being ready to start. And then throughout the lesson, it's a lot of checking in for the reinforcement and giving praise that he's going along, he's on the right track. During the guided practice, there'll be a written note, a stamp, a sticker put on as a bit of completed work, and then some reward time if he can finish that activity fairly quickly, of a preferred activity. And then again, at the end, checking in, giving praise, and just seeing how he's going. Sensory strategies throughout the lesson. He's in that quiet part of the classroom with low traffic. Desk is clear. He's got the noise cancelling headphones available. His visual support is clear. The teacher using clear, sort of short instructions the whole time just to lower that burden. And his eyes don't actually need to be on the teacher, as he's got his supports there the whole time to track along with. The visual support's colour-coded, so we can match it with the anchor chart and the graphic designer. The rest of the class, it's a low noise level activity, so that won't hopefully be an issue. And then a moving break is there if he needs it. For his reflection, there's no whole class pressure in it. He's got his own chart to fill out and just self-reflect there. And he also is aware that the lesson's coming to an end at that point. For his communication and social skills throughout the lesson, there's the visual support communicating it all non-verbally. That happens throughout the lesson. So the verbal communication isn't relied upon. There's SSOs there to support if any issues come up, such as like vocabulary words or if he's just having any issues. He can non-verbally ask for a break through a predetermined signal that we'll come up with Liam. And again, no social pressure at the end with that lesson reflection. For the data collection, he's measuring his ability to use the visual support without prompting. That's the same as the whole class instruction and the reflection at the end. We're measuring his ability to use those so that they can work for future lessons. And then these are through just visual observations, checking yes or no, and if he needs further assistance using them. During the guided practice, we're collecting the data of if he's doing the narrative sections correctly, using the sentence starters for his own work, and then if he's referencing back to the visual supports. The generalised plan for it is mostly so he can use these visual supports in future lessons and become confident in those, and they can be used more often, as well as being able to complete independent tasks without issues over extended periods of time, especially open-ended tasks like this, and just gaining greater confidence in tasks such as this. My individual reflection, I found learning about EPBs really fascinating and helpful. I can see how they can easily be applied in my teaching. I've tried some of these practices before without necessarily realising what I was trying to put in practice or the full extent of how to use them. So through learning about them more, I can see how they need to be tailored more to the individual, consistently done over time, and need to be actually taught explicitly to a student how to use them, such as visual supports today. I think EPBs impact students' learning through changing their whole learning experience. Autistic students can have a lot of difficulties with their learning. The cognitive load that can be removed with these strategies is massive, I think. Also think it's really important about lessening their anxiety, lowering their anxiety as much as possible and making school a comfortable place. EPBs, I'll use them in my future. I'm lucky enough that I'm a special authority and I'm already teaching, so I've been able to easily see how I can apply these EPBs to students in my class and change my own teaching, make myself more prepared to help these kids and help them function in my classroom and have it being a better environment. Well, thank you.